Welcome to a brand new podcast. Ian McLean is a writer and the author of TJ's War. David Blair is an actor and the narrator of the audiobook TJ's War. David and Ian have been listening to their readers and listeners and have decided to turn TJ's War into a movie. And since the story covers the entirety of World War II, the movie will cost at least $50 million. Will David and Ian succeed in their quest? Follow them in this podcast series. We're going to make a $50 million movie.
So tell me, guys, a $50 million budget is what you are projecting at this moment for TJ's War to be made. And let's find out where you're at.
Oh, that's an immediate reversal. We're supposed to be asking you questions. The simple answer is that we are right at the start of this, and we've come up with a figure of 50 million based on films that might be a bit like this, or productions that might be a bit like this. But really, it could be, the range could be anything from less than that to a great deal more than that. We really don't know at this stage, and maybe we'll have to retitle the movie, the podcast, when we find out a bit more. Who knows?
Yeah, we were aware of the fact that we think that it might well be a streaming thing on the TV. It could be 6, 8, 10 episodes on Netflix. Could be a movie. I mean, for a period piece with tanks and soldiers as far as the eye can see, and a big sprawling cast and multiple global locations, it could be quite pricey. Mm-hmm. So I think the movie bit was just a bit more catchy than 6 streaming episodes on Netflix, and the 50 million was a figure plucked out of the air.
Well, what's really fantastic is that you can take either a multi-episodic series and bring it back into a script for a movie, or you can do the reverse. So you can either start with a movie and then break it up, or you can do from a episode to a movie. Does that make sense? So at this point, your log line, your treatment for what you're presenting to potential investors, that's really where you want to start putting your energy and focus at this point, to have something that be like, hey, we can also make it into, and this would be really robust for an 8-part series, a limited series. And limited series are really popular right now on so many different platforms, from Amazon to Hulu to Netflix to even Peacock is doing some really tremendously outstanding limited series. So, streaming platforms are really fantastic and hungry for content.
There's a massive number of questions in my head. For the benefit of our viewer and listener, it might be useful for them to know a bit more about you, Janice, before I start asking any of those questions.
I was thinking that too, Ian.
How did you get into this business, and exactly what do you do, Janice?
I have been in and out of the arts since a child, since I was 7 years old. I started out as on the stage and traveled with a Central New York acting company as a kid. And I was in musical theater. Then I worked behind the scenes. I've run national schools for actors training. I was executive director for Oregon's Film and Television Trade Association, and helped with increasing the film incentive for the state. Let's see, I have a production company for the last 7 years, and we have been in development with a slate of films that we'll talk about as this time goes on, but we have probably 20 different titles, and working with agents, working with writers agents, with talent agents, and partnering with key people. So when we are presenting our our full package to different producers, of which we have money lined up already to start with our first slate of films. And additionally, I am doing an independent, executive producing an independent film. So that one is tricky because that one has a lot of music to it, which we have to deal with, the rights for music.
But Janice, can I just dive into that a little bit? If you have a load of different movies at different stages of the process, and you might have, as you said, 20 different projects on the go, how do you determine which one gets your attention? Which one, if you get a meeting with somebody, do you think, well, I could show them any of these, or discounting those because they're already a bit further, I could show them these 5, or how does all that work?
Well, the way we do it is we bundle our projects into slates, and so it's really it's kind of like a diversification of a stock portfolio. You're looking for things that will be your money makers, your artsy film, your blockbuster. So which one is going to make money is kind of is a gamble, and it's a bet, but there's a little bit of a science behind it too. Like, horror movies make money. Not my favorite genre, but that's the one that is constantly being made. You can do it on a really a slim budget, and they return their investment, typically.
Interesting. Push the horror movie then.
Pardon me?
Push the horror movie.
For us?
Yeah, no, I'm
not able to say.
Yeah, we should.
But we have.
A horror movie.
They just get made. You can make them, in the dark. You're not paying for lighting. So you think about like all of the things that you're dealing with horror movies. So like you don't need as many rigging of lights, which take time and energy and money.
With all that experience, let's just take one production. What's the first thing you do with a production? Because that's where we're at.
As Maria von Trapp said, let's start at the very beginning. Do you know this website called No Film School? Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay, that's where I would recommend you start. NoFilmSchool.com. It's an outstanding resource to help you with every stage of your production. So when you're talking about screenwriting, when you're talking, doing your script, they have wonderful blogs and podcasts about different steps you should be taking while you're thinking about your scene that you're writing. And as David said earlier on, like he wants his sides the day before so he can do his work. You really want to start to think about. You've got a book, which is a fantastic book, and so from TJ's War, you're going to be thinking about how to break down TJ's War into different acts. Almost like I think of it as the theater, because that's my background is theater. And so I like to think about, then you go acts to scenes, for the whole, and what is your story arc? Every story has an arc. How do you portray that story in the best way possible? And then as you move forward with a screenwriter, and you really want a screenwriter that has done movies or other television treatments before, because then the screenwriter will inherently keep in mind a kind of budget. And you can have a screenwriter that's like, let's blow up 3,000 cars. Well, that's going to cost you a lot of money. So you have to be really careful. Like and then if you want to go to CGI to create what you're doing, there's, that's a consideration for all of your locations that David was talking about. So what can be done boots on the ground, or what can be done in a studio, what can be done with technology. It's a love story when it comes down to it. So you can do a love story for $50 million. You can. We have budgets for some of my films that are, one is 150 million and the others we are really doing for within the $5 to $10 million sweet spot. You want to think about like how long is it going to take you to film. So you really want to think about what you're doing, how many crews do you need to have that you can send out to the field to get your B-roll and get your anything that is establishing your scene as to where your location is. And a lot of our productions, sometimes you can just buy B-roll too, so you don't even have to film it. So let's say you want to be like San Francisco, so you want like San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge. You don't have to actually physically go there, pay for a drone and do that. There's a lot of shots of San Francisco.
Would you say that the length of the film, the length of the finished product, is directly proportional to the budget? You can't do that.
I can't really say that because usually we have films are within the 90-minute to 2-hour range. I don't know if you saw RRR. Did you see that movie? It was a 5-hour movie out of India.
Oh, the Indian
Yeah.
thing.
Did you?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
that was great.
phenomenal. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I was like, really, am I going to watch this 5-hour epic movie about the colonization of India and how they did all of those scenes? It was really quite a feat that they did.
Janice, can I just drag us back to pick up on the back of Ian's question? If you have on your desk Monday morning, there's another 20 scripts or ideas or treatments or decks or whatever, what process are you going through to make you go, nah, maybe, and so on? What makes you think, do you know what, I just haven't got time for that? Or, yeah, but as long as they change that. What's that thought process, and what makes you go, aha, yes?
Good question. The stories for me is first. Secondarily is who's attached to the story. Now, that being said, like who's the writer, who are they thinking about for the producer or director? With our productions and our films that we have, my partner's the writer, so he's an outstanding writer. He can do episodic, he can do films. So that's a no-brainer. Who we have attached, we have an A-lister talent agency already with our letter of intents with them. So anybody who's coming in for film financing for us, they know that we can get A-list actors. So they know that, when you're putting your pitch deck together, you are putting out maybe not the actors you're going to get, but you're putting out who you envision. How do you see this film coming to be? Who do you see as the love interest? And you put her picture there. So now you're really creating a depth to the story for somebody else to like catch your vision and get excited about it. You've got the concept. Now you need to have the script or the episodes, at least a treatment of it. So you need to have somebody who perhaps you can invest money in. So therefore now you put a cart before the horse. So now you've got to get somebody who's excited enough about the book that will put money in so you can pay for a screenwriter. So now, like, in some cases, the movie that I'm working with, where the screenwriter is the one who brought it to me, the script, and so I read the script and I was like, wow, this is beautiful, and he came with that to say, hey, we also have a director and a producer. Will you be the executive producer to help us raise funds? And and I have relationships with some distribution companies. And so my goal now is to take that, and I was like, well, you need to put together a pitch deck. So I think the 3 components that you probably need at this moment would be some kind of, even if you can't do the whole script, but enough to get enough to get a concept as to how the story is going to sound, to flow. You want to get enough meat on the bones so there's enough interest.
Where I think we're at, we've in the last year we've produced, we've identified, David and I especially have identified 6 episodes that the story could be broken up into for a TV series, and we've produced a deck or a treatment or whatever it's wanted to be called, and we've produced script for 2 of those episodes. The thing is, neither David nor I have done this before, and so I think we're nervous about taking that to somebody like you at this stage, because we don't want to be pushed back at this point because it's not in the right format, or it's not it's just not right. So I feel a little frustrated. Not tonight. I feel generally frustrated about this process, because I think we've done quite a lot of work already, having written and published the book. We've done quite a lot of work after that point, but we're nervous about taking it to the next step. We really want somebody who's done this before. We really want you, Janice, or somebody like you, to read this without any, in a sort of a neutral way, to turn around to us and say, no, this is not quite ready yet, go back and start again, without killing us.
We might have that. I don't know whether I've mentioned, Ian knows about this, but my acting agent is also a pre-production agent. So they take scripts and they do roundtable readings, and they do at least the pre-production bit, like the seed funding and that kind of stuff, and they get it to the stage of it actually going into production, and then they let go of it.
Well, are you trying to get it to a producer? Is that your goal, is to get it to a producer? Because I think that you guys are able to produce it. I don't think that you need to, every time you add another person, just think of yourself as diluting your money. So, you want to be careful about like how many layers you add to the stew, like how many cooks in the kitchen, because every time you add somebody in a pivotal role, you're adding a cook, and that person will come to it with a very strong understanding. When I was producing my video for the product that I have invented, I hired a production company, even though I know how to produce, right? So I hired a production company because I was like, I need a step back from this. I hired a director, and I hired a screenwriter. All of that cost me money. Now, I wound up also kind of producing as well on the day leading up to it to save money, so like the back end producing things. And so I didn't have to hire, like I could hire a production assistant versus a producer. So those are key roles. So I don't know, I think that you have the wherewithal within yourselves right here to say, okay, what role am I going to take on? Or do I outsource that? I don't think necessarily at this point you want to have your script sitting on somebody's desk, like will or will they not read it? It's like your passion about this is the best script ever. We're looking to get this script made. Where do you go to generate that enthusiasm? You go to like this podcast, you go to Kickstarter, you go to places, you go to like David has resources for people who can workshop a scene and read a scene through and have people listen to the audience. How did that read? And get some feedback from people who are willing to just, put in sweat equity or just time, and just be like, okay, on a Saturday afternoon, let's just gather some people together, read a script, or let's record reading a script together and put it online and for that brutal feedback. Would you want to know more? Those are ways that you can do it. I come from a nonprofit background. I've worked nonprofits my whole career, and when I was running like the National School for Actors Training. It's a school. It's a nonprofit, and the film and television industry for the state of Oregon, running their trade association. That's a nonprofit. I kind of think it's sort of fun to think creatively about how to get writers and just maybe even have a contest. Hey, we're putting it out there for writers. Send us some samples of what you write. Then you look at what their writing samples are, which ones, and then of that trove, maybe you'll select 8 or 7 of them as to who can give a great treatment to maybe a couple chapters of TJ's War. And then from there, ask your audience to say, hey, which movie would you rather see? And then really cull that down and start to get people involved and behind you and say okay, this is the one we're going to make. That becomes our writer.
I like that. And what we're moving away from is this idea that the screenwriter has to be a name. This idea that they. I like that a lot.
As long as we might think it sounds all right, but would a good screenwriter that costs more, perhaps, know how to think, and they would know about, you see, if you want to do that, then I can't write this because that will mean such and such. And might we be missing a level of knowledge and experience?
So what happens with many scripts is that they get put through a scrutiny. Like my business partner Gary Salvaggio is a prolific screenwriter, and so he does treatments on scripts before they even become a movie. So he will be given a script and then clean it up. He cleans it up with the production with his production hat on. It's like, okay, if we shoot, them walking down the street in New York City, that's going to be a pain in the neck. Can we just show a couple walking down any old street? So he does kind of like that little sort of cleanup, and in the script.
But we could do the first bit, and then at least we've got something that we really like,
right?
And that's another stage. I've heard it said by streaming people that sometimes even they might make a first season of something knowing that there's another one in the bag, and they don't really make much money on the first one, and they recoup their losses and make money on the second season. Is there any truth in that?
That I don't know. I really can't speak to that. I have no idea.
Okay.
So I think I'm not into the streaming at this moment. We do have some distribution lined up for that. Some of our projects will be for streaming, but I can get answers to that. And then one time you might want Gary on, because Gary knows far more than I do. He's made a living on in this industry his whole career. So he would be a great one to have on this show. You're making the movie because you love the movie. You have to be in love with what you're doing to put all this time and energy. I've been involved in so many different movies that just have never been made, and they're all beautiful. They're all a lovely story of it's a love story in Pennsylvania. Inexpensive to make, very inexpensive. People love good storytelling. If you tell a good story, your audience will follow you. And don't be disheartened. It's very, at this point, be so clear as to what you want to tell. Be clear as to who is the best person to tell your story and to entrust with your story. And then you're going to have more layers of people that you have to trust telling the story. Like the director that you choose might be somebody who's like, I want it to be a war movie. And then, and the screenwriter though might be like, I want it to be a romance movie. So you've got a conflict there. So you just want to make sure that everybody that you're bringing on board has the exact same vision that you do, because it will be changed.
Would you say that it's not really our problem whether it's overall a 500 million budget or whether it's 50 million? it's not really our problem. As you say, if we stick to this is our central vision for what we think this thing has to be, and it's up to Netflix to go away and go, okay, we're going to take it on, leave it with us, and they'll decide what the budget is.
Yeah.
No, we do. Yes.
But at some point, we're going to have to come to a decision where we say, do you know what? If it isn't all of that, if you're only going to put 20 million on this, forget it. We're going to take it somewhere else because it's not going to be the book. It's not going to be what we want it to be.
Well, I'm less precious about it than that, but because if they were going to spend 20 million on it, they're going to build something that could be very interesting. But I think that there's two discussions around budget here. There's the budget for making the thing, and there's the revenue it generates. Those are two different things. And the revenue it generates is really not our problem. That's what I mean. I want this film made. I am very, very passionate about getting this story out there in whatever form it's going to go. Absolutely. And you know, whatever it takes to achieve that, that's what I think we all want to do. But if it's a bomb, it's a bomb. It's because the world is not ready to hear this thing that we're trying to say. But that's their problem. It's not our problem. Our problem is that we're passionate about doing this.
You know, your goal is to make the best that. Yeah, you want to make the best story. You want to write the best story, have the best story, and you know, there's so many avenues with which to distribute storytelling. You know, you even on the airplanes, frankly, that's a great place to put it. You can even just create a short for what you're doing to start getting your information out there, to get the essence of what the story is and tell it in a short story form. Phoenix, Oregon is a movie that was made during the pandemic, or released during the pandemic when everything was shutting down and they had theater distribution. So they were going into movies. The way they did it was they did their own streaming service. They made national news just by, and I know the filmmakers, the producers of this, but it's just a sweet story. And what they did was they couldn't get into the movie theaters anymore. They weren't on Netflix. They weren't on Hulu. But what they did was they did a social media campaign and said, for $2.99, you can see the movie. Your whole family can see the movie. They made money off of that. People around
Yeah.
you know, watched Phoenix, Oregon, and they were releasing it, and they did a great social media marketing campaign. And this is just a couple. They're just, you know, they were a very small production company, just two people. So it doesn't take a lot, but what it does is it and I think that you should actually talk with them about producing, because you are an independent film. Having people who have done this before from soup to nuts and how to do it on a budget, 50 million may or may not be the right amount of money that you're putting into it. Yes, you think it's a war movie. Yes, you need to have bombs. Yes, you need to have some period piece items. But again, is it cheaper to buy the rights to somebody else's bomb blowing up? Perhaps. You're ready to put money towards somebody who can write a treatment from the book. That's really where you need to spend your resources, as to getting your script, getting something that you love, and be like, wow, they picked the right parts of this story to tell. You don't have to tell every aspect of the story. And as we all know, we read the books and then saw the movie and like, wait, they put that part in, or you know, but that's the writer's license. But did they get the story?
I'm with you all the way. I think that's great, Janice. You don't need to get rejected. And on top of this, look, we've got a treatment. Let's just put it out there and see what people say about it. Because what's the worst that can happen? They can tell us to make a better one.
You know, you're gonna get people who say no, but you're gonna get people who be like, wow, I love this story. So just believe in yourself. You guys have a great story. You have something that you are passionate about wanting to be made. You can do this. This is not, you know, so many people have done this before. Not everybody does it because it's obviously you're seeing that you just keep, every time you turn around, you're smacking another brick wall. But the fact is that it's been done. That's the good news. You're not inventing the camera. You're not inventing all these different things. You are able to put this together with the tools that are out there and the free resources that are out there, crowdfunding, keeping up your podcast. People want to cheer you on. They want you to be successful.
To find out more about the book, visit tjswar.com, and to buy it, click on the Amazon link below. To accompany us on our journey, please subscribe to this podcast because we're going to make a $50 million movie.